the sophistication of the hackers that are involved in this is extremely high. When you think of hackers, you might just think of a bunch of teenagers sitting in a basement listening to metal music or something. You don't realise quite the level that these people are. They are very, very sophisticated. They are run like professional organisations, highly skilled individuals that have spent years and years training, are funded by the government as well. So you're talking about people who can really do attacks sophisticated enough to potentially change the overall result of an election if they wanted to, and if our security wasn't good enough.
Now, while we're all waiting to find out who will be our next Prime Minister, there's been a potential hacking alert which has put the delivery of ballot papers to members on hold. The Conservative Party has also been forced to abandon plans to allow members to change their vote for the next leader later in the contest due to the concerns. So how worried should we be about hacking in this contest? Well, I'm joined by Rob Shapland, an ethical hacker, head of cyber at online security company Phalanx Cyber, and is with me now. Afternoon, Rob.
Hi, afternoon. Thanks for having me on.
What do we know about this alert? Was it an immediate threat?
No, it's more of a kind of a warning that this could happen. So we've seen in past elections attempts to influence what's happening. And this alert doesn't seem to be against a particular entity or government or anything like that, or a particular threat, but it's basically saying we are vulnerable. The way we're doing this, the way the Conservatives have set up this voting system is potentially insecure because it's using online voting. And as soon as you put something online, of course, it's then potentially vulnerable to hacking. There's a reason why we don't use online voting for our normal general elections and local elections and things. So it's more of a warning of this could happen. We're really concerned and we want to spend a bit of time to make sure it's all secure.
What can be done to prevent hacking?
Well, there's loads of things that can be done. So, of course, by being online, there's loads of potential ways it could be hacked into. So, for example, there needs some way to authenticate people to the system. So the Tory membership that are logging on, perhaps there may be a vulnerability in how that's done. The software they're using, perhaps that has a vulnerability that can be exploited by someone to get into the system and change it. And one of the things you touched on right at the start is that ability prior to this alert for the membership to be able to change their vote. And what we are really concerned about is perhaps people voting and then right before the results are counted, we find out that a whole load of results have been changed because the codes, these unique codes that are supplied to the membership, have somehow been compromised. So perhaps someone's put a photo on Twitter of them doing their vote and that code been taken and then changed, the vote changed. Or perhaps there's a pattern to these codes and we can look at that pattern and we can discern perhaps what other Tory membership codes might be and then go through and change a whole load of votes, completely undermining confidence in the system.
This might seem like a really obvious question, but who can benefit from this besides perhaps the person who is having those votes changed to them?
Yeah, well, it's foreign governments mostly. So we look at Russia, Iran, China, places like that have a vested interest. So perhaps they have one candidate they would prefer to get in, or it could just be to sow the seeds of doubt. If they could show that this election had been tampered with, that's a huge show of strength. It undermines confidence in future votes. It affects how people view the whole voting system if they think it can be influenced by foreign governments. So it's very, very useful for foreign governments to be able to try and influence elections in this way.
It seems quite bizarre in an age when we're able to bank online, we can communicate with our councils online, that voting is still not viable online. Will it ever be?
One day, maybe. The problem is it attracts such a sophisticated level of hacker targeting it. So banks are very secure, but banks spend millions upon millions on their cybersecurity. And what GCHQ is saying with this alert is the system you put out isn't secure enough to defend against the sophistication of hacker that's going to be targeting you. So we may eventually see some sort of online voting system, but in order to make it secure enough, it's going to cost a lot of money. And there's always the small risk that whoever's targeting you knows about some vulnerability in whatever system you're using that you don't know about. So you have no idea that it can be exploited and can be taken control of by someone else. So, yeah, I think although maybe one day we'll see it, it's probably not going to be for quite a while. And this alert is saying to us we're not there yet.
Rob, how concerned should we be about the vulnerabilities leading to the delivery of ballot papers in the Tory party leadership contest being put on hold?
Yeah, I mean, it shows, like I say, it shows a lack of confidence in the system that's being used. I mean, postal voting is fine. We don't have a particular issue with that. They've delayed the system, obviously, to make some changes and things like that. And this online system is still remaining in place, but they needed to change this ability to modify votes at a later stage. If you can change your mind repeatedly, it provides an extra avenue for hackers to get in and try and do it. So I've got no concerns as such with the postal voting system, but it's this online system, the ability to change, that I was very concerned about, and that they looks like they're modifying. So I think we'll be okay.
How common more widely is election hacking?
It's always there. It's always targeted. So it's one of the biggest things that foreign governments will try and influence. However, it's very difficult to measure the success of it. So especially in a very advanced country like ours, I'm not massively concerned that it's happened on a large scale previously, because we haven't used online voting. But as soon as you introduce that online element, you introduce this huge risk that a hacker can get in and modify, and it's the volume they can modify it in that's the problem. If you're talking about changing one vote, it probably doesn't matter. But if you can get into an online system, the back end of that system, and modify thousands upon thousands of votes, you can influence election in the favour that you want it to go. So it's a massive problem having any sort of online system potentially.
And given what's happening in the world at the moment, Rob, particularly with eyes on Ukraine and Russia, how much more of a concern is this becoming?
It's going to grow exponentially. Disinformation, the ability to influence and change results of anything, is a huge target for Russia. Not just Russia, but other foreign governments as well. So the sophistication of the hackers that are involved in this is extremely high. When you think of hackers, you might just think of a bunch of teenagers sitting in a basement listening to metal music or something. You don't realize quite the level that these people are. They are very, very sophisticated. They are run like professional organizations, highly skilled individuals that have spent years and years training, are funded by the government as well. So you're talking about people who can really do attacks sophisticated enough to potentially change the overall result of an election if they wanted to, and if our security wasn't good enough.
Is there not a concern, Rob, that by even talking about this, the fact that a potential hacking alert has put the delivery of ballot papers in the Tory leadership contest on hold, the fact we're even talking about this, I would imagine to a certain extent, is a red flag to anyone wanting to carry out cyber attacks? It demonstrates perhaps some weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. Yeah. And there may be, behind the warning, we don't know exactly what they're warning us about. They've not put any technical details in, but there's got to be something behind it, right? It's not just for no reason. So yeah, it would be telling me, if I were a Russian hacker, for example, there is something vulnerable here for me to look at and try to get into. It also already is a success for those foreign governments in a way as well, because there's already been a delay caused by this. It's already in the media. We're already concerned about it being vulnerable, and it already undermines confidence. So it provides, whoever loses, it provides a sort of a get out of jail free card in a way, and say, look, perhaps the election was hacked into. And we've seen, Donald Trump used that during the US elections, didn't he, to potentially say the election had been tampered with. There's always going to be that element of doubt, and by things like this happening, it just enhances that level of doubt.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, Rob, we'll leave it there, but good to have you on this afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Rob Shapland there, the ethical hacker and head of cyber at Phalanx Cyber. Should just say that the National Cyber Security Centre has told us defending UK democratic and electoral processes is a priority. We work closely with all parliamentary political parties, local authorities and MPs to provide cyber security guidance and support. And as you'd expect from the UK's National Cyber Security Authority, we provided advice to the Conservative Party on security considerations for online leadership voting.